Emily Hartwell was the kind of student everyone on campus seemed to know, bright, ambitious, and deeply woven into the sorority life at LSU. But on a late September night in Baton Rouge, when she climbed onto her lavender bike and pedaled toward home, she set in motion a mystery that would grip the community for years. Hours later, her apartment sat untouched, her phone had gone silent near the Mississippi River, and the last person to see her was a grainy camera that captured a shadowy truck trailing behind. What began as an ordinary ride turned into the chilling story of a sorority girl who vanished without a trace. Emily Hartwell's story begins on a night that seemed ordinary, a night like countless others on the campus of Louisiana State University. It was late September, and the sticky warmth of the southern air clung to everything, heavy but familiar. Classes had just picked up speed, and the excitement of football season and fall events kept the campus buzzing even after dark. Emily, a 20-year-old sophomore, was in the heart of it all. She was bright, social, and deeply involved in her sorority, Delta Theta, where she was helping organize their annual charity gala. She had spent hours that evening at the sorority house with her sisters, staying behind after most had gone to polish details for the event. By the time she finally decided to head back to her apartment, it was just after midnight. She wasn't afraid to make the trip alone. Baton Rouge wasn't the safest city in the country, but for Emily, the short ride across familiar streets was routine. She often biked home after late nights of studying or hanging out with friends. Her apartment was less than 10 minutes away, and the quickest path cut past Riverbend Park and a small strip of quiet streets that curved toward the Mississippi River. The route had just enough streetlights to feel safe, though stretches of shadows made it easy to disappear from view. Emily wheeled her lavender-colored bike out of the sorority house driveway. She wore a simple t-shirt and shorts, her long hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. The bracelet on her wrist, engraved with her sorority's Greek letters, jingled softly as she adjusted the straps of her backpack. Inside, she carried nothing unusual: her laptop, some notes, and her phone, which buzzed with a message from a friend reminding her of an early morning class. She never responded. On security footage from a nearby gas station, she appeared calm as she pedaled past, her head down, hair swinging as the bike picked up speed. She looked like any other student making their way home after a long day. But what the footage also captured was less ordinary. Just minutes after Emily passed, a dark pickup truck entered the frame, moving slower than the flow of traffic. Its headlights cast long beams across the pavement, and though the camera angle was poor, the outline of the vehicle was clear. It rolled along the same route Emily had just taken, following the curve of the road toward the shadows near the river. The next morning, Emily's absence was immediate and obvious. She hadn't shown up for class, something her professors noted because she rarely missed lectures. Her sorority sisters assumed she had overslept, but when hours stretched into evening with no word, concern deepened into alarm. Her apartment remained locked, her bed untouched. Calls to her phone went straight to voicemail. By the time police were contacted, the faint trail she had left the bike ride. The gas station footage, the last ping from her phone near Riverbend Park, was already growing cold. That night, a normal bike ride home had quietly transformed into the beginning of a mystery that no one on campus could explain. The search for Emily began almost immediately once the reality of her disappearance sank in. Her sorority sisters were the first to act, fanning out across campus and nearby streets, retracing the route she would have taken on her bike. They called her name into the humid air, peered into parking lots, and checked cafes she sometimes visited late at night. Nothing. When police officially became involved, the effort widened quickly. Officers walked the river trail, volunteers combed the park, and helicopters scanned the tree lines with spotlights that swept across the dark water of the Mississippi. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Detectives started with her last known movements. The grainy security footage showing Emily riding past the gas station became a crucial piece of evidence. Investigators studied it frame by frame, noting how the dark pickup appeared just after her. It was impossible to see the driver or plate number, but the timing was too close to ignore. Was the truck following her intentionally, or was it coincidence? Detectives began canvassing businesses along the route, asking for any additional footage. Some cameras were broken, others had already taped over the recordings, and none offered a clear look at the truck. It was a frustrating dead end. Meanwhile, police interviewed her friends and classmates. They wanted to know if Emily had any conflicts, if she was involved with someone, or if anyone might have had a reason to harm her. By all accounts, she was well-liked and had no known enemies. The only detail that stood out was her independence. Emily often biked home late rather than asking someone for a ride. To her, it was freedom. To investigators, it suggested opportunity for someone watching. As word spread, the community joined the effort. Flyers with her photo were taped to lampposts, pinned to bulletin boards, and passed out on campus. Local news stations aired updates every hour, interviewing her professors and sorority sisters, who spoke of her energy, her smile, her plans for the future. Vigils were held at the sorority house, candles flickering in the night while students whispered prayers for her safe return. Yet each passing day without answers made hope harder to hold on to. Detectives pushed harder into the evidence they did have. Emily's phone had last pinged near Riverbend Park at 12:27 a.m., then abruptly went silent. That timestamp became a marker of her final moments in the digital world. Officers searched the area repeatedly, combing through brush, walking the riverbank, and even using dogs trained to detect human scent. The dogs picked up something faint but lost it near the levee, where the thick woods made it nearly impossible to track further. The presence of the truck haunted the investigation. Detectives believed the driver might be the key, whether or not he was involved. A public call went out for information, but no one came forward to claim responsibility. Weeks slipped by, and the case that had once drawn headlines began to feel heavier, more uncertain. Emily was no closer to being found, but the search had uncovered one clear truth: someone out there knew what happened, and they had chosen to remain silent. 2 weeks after Emily's disappearance, the search that had consumed Baton Rouge finally yielded a clue. On a muggy Saturday morning, a fisherman walking along the levee spotted something tangled in the brush. It was Emily's bike. The frame was twisted, its tires punctured and flattened as if deliberately slashed. A few feet away, half buried in dirt and leaves, lay a silver bracelet engraved with Greek letters, the same one Emily's sorority sisters said she never took off. The discovery instantly shifted the investigation. What had once been treated as a missing persons case was now seen as something darker. Police swarmed the site, photographing every detail, bagging the bike, and combing the surrounding area for further evidence. The location raised immediate questions. The levee was not on Emily's usual route home, though it wasn't far from where her phone had last pinged. Why would she have gone that way? Had she been forced, or had someone planted the bike to confuse investigators? The slashed tires suggested sabotage, not an accident. Detectives began to see this as an orchestrated event rather than random misfortune. The bracelet complicated things further. It bore Emily's DNA, but when tested, another partial profile surfaced, one that didn't match any immediate suspect or known associate. This was a chilling development. It suggested someone had been close enough to Emily to leave a trace, yet their identity remained hidden in the system. The revelation of an unknown male presence raised the stakes, leaving both investigators and the public uneasy. Attention turned back to Emily's digital footprint. Detectives discovered she had received a series of anonymous text messages in the months leading up to her disappearance. The messages weren't overtly threatening, but they were unsettling in their precision. They referenced places she had studied, shifts at her part-time job, and even her schedule at the sorority house. Whoever sent them knew her routine well. Emily had never reported the texts, dismissing them as harmless. Now, they seemed like warnings that had gone unnoticed. Investigators pressed deeper into her circle, interviewing classmates and sorority sisters about anyone who might have shown unusual interest in her. One name surfaced more than once: Tyler, a fellow student who had dropped out earlier in the semester. Friends recalled how he lingered around Emily, often appearing at events even when he wasn't invited. Some said he was harmless but awkward, while others described him as overly fixated. When detectives dug into his background, they found inconsistencies. He lived just a few blocks from Emily's apartment, yet hadn't been seen during the days surrounding her disappearance. Still, nothing tied him directly to the bike or bracelet. Without concrete evidence, the case stalled in limbo between suspicion and fact. What troubled investigators most was the feeling of calculation. The bike hidden near the levee, the bracelet left behind, the silence of the phone, none of it seemed accidental. It was as if someone had carefully constructed a trail, but one designed to confuse rather than clarify. For Emily's family and friends, the discovery only deepened the mystery, replacing fading hope with annoying dread that the answers they sought might never fully come to light. As the weeks stretched into months, the investigation took a turn that unsettled everyone who had been following Emily's story. After examining the anonymous text messages and her daily patterns, detectives circled back to Tyler, the former LSU student who had once shown too much interest in her. His name had lingered in conversations with friends, whispered with unease. He was remembered for being persistent, someone who would show up uninvited, hovering at the edges of social gatherings. When police finally brought him in for questioning, his answers were strange. He claimed to have admired Emily from afar but denied ever contacting her. The real break came when detectives searched a storage unit he had been renting under his name. Inside, they found objects that could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. Folded neatly on a shelf was a Delta Theta t-shirt, though Tyler had never been a member of any fraternity or sorority. Alongside it sat a detailed map of local bike trails marked with routes that Emily frequently used. Most disturbing of all was her missing student ID card, something she had always kept in her wallet. Tyler insisted he had collected these items as souvenirs from campus life, things he said reminded him of the years he had spent at LSU before dropping out. But the presence of Emily's ID raised suspicions that could not be brushed aside. Investigators pressed him further, but his alibis were shaky and his explanations left gaps too wide to ignore. Despite the troubling evidence, there was still no direct link to the scene by the levee or to the night Emily vanished. Forensic testing on the bracelet found near her bike complicated the story even more. The unknown male DNA that had been recovered from it did not match Tyler. This revelation baffled investigators. If Tyler was responsible, why wasn't there any trace of him where it mattered most? If he wasn't, then who else had crossed paths with Emily that night? Public interest in the case reignited with this twist. News outlets reported on the evidence discovered in Tyler's storage unit, fueling speculation and dividing opinion. Some believed he was guilty and had managed to cover his tracks. Others thought the evidence was too convenient, as if someone had planted items to shift suspicion in his direction. Families in Baton Rouge grew more fearful, convinced that someone dangerous was still out there, moving unseen in their community. Detectives explored other angles, including the possibility that more than one person had been involved. Perhaps Tyler had followed Emily, but someone else had intercepted her first. Or perhaps the unknown DNA belonged to an accomplice, someone working alongside him. Without answers, theories multiplied, each one adding to the tension that hung over the city. The case no longer felt like a simple mystery of a young woman gone missing. It had become layered, tangled, and sinister. Emily's bracelet with its hidden clue, the sabotaged bike, and the eerie collection of personal items in a storage unit painted a picture that was hard to reconcile. The investigation was no longer about following a straight path to the truth. It was about untangling a web of contradictions that only seemed to grow tighter the deeper the police went. Months after Emily's disappearance, when hope for answers was thinning, the case took a shocking and unexpected turn. A man already serving time for burglary in a Louisiana prison requested to speak with investigators. He claimed he had information about Emily. At first, detectives doubted his story, suspecting it was a desperate ploy for attention. But as he began describing details that had never been released to the public, they realized he might be telling the truth. He said he had followed Emily that night with the intent of stealing her bike. According to him, she surprised him by fighting back. In his version of events, panic overtook him. He admitted to dragging the damaged bike into the brush near the levee and leaving Emily near the riverbank before fleeing the scene. The confession seemed to explain the bike's strange condition and its hidden location. But the more investigators listened, the more troubling the story became. He claimed to have acted alone, yet DNA evidence from the bracelet told a different story. His profile did not match the unknown male DNA that had been recovered, raising doubts about whether he was telling the full truth. Some detectives believed he was minimizing his involvement, leaving out critical details. Others suspected he may have stumbled upon Emily at the wrong time, colliding with something larger already in motion. Divers were sent into the Mississippi River, searching tirelessly for her body in the murky water. For weeks they dredged using sonar, dragging equipment, and even cadaver dogs trained to detect human remains. The river, vast and unpredictable, yielded nothing. Without a body, prosecutors struggled to build a solid case. The burglar's confession was troubling but incomplete, full of holes that no one could close. He was eventually charged in connection to Emily's disappearance, but the community sensed that more pieces of the puzzle were missing. Attention once again drifted back to Tyler. Many people were unwilling to believe he was uninvolved, especially after the disturbing discoveries in his storage unit. The possibility emerged that Emily had been the target of not one, but two men that night, one obsessed with her, the other opportunistic and dangerous. Perhaps their paths had crossed at the worst possible moment, sealing her fate in a way no one could have predicted. The unknown DNA remained the silent reminder that someone else was still out there, someone who had yet to face justice. Emily's family and sorority never stopped honoring her memory. Each year, they gathered at the river for a vigil, releasing candles that floated on the water's surface, glowing faintly before drifting out of sight. Her sorority sisters spoke of her energy, her kindness, and the life she had been building. On campus, her absence lingered like a shadow. Though the official case file marked her as missing, the unanswered questions left Baton Rouge uneasy. Was the burglar's confession the whole truth, or only a fragment? Did Tyler's obsession play a darker role than anyone could prove? Or was there another figure, unknown and still silent, who had been watching that night? Emily's disappearance remained a mystery tangled in fear and speculation, one that seemed destined never to be fully untangled.